Karen did do some work on it. Yeah, it could go very
I
quick.
did, and it's not, no.
No surprises. Let's no
We didn't find
surprises.
that piece of paper.
Recording now.
So Karen, do you
Okay.
feel like you're ready or
There's not- no-
do you feel like there's enough time?
There's not.
It's really,
I mean, I can send you a little memo on it. It's. If it's not, it's basically that the board, counties don't have really jurisdiction to tell township what to do.
Nuts and bolts.
Karen, can you see if your mic is working, please? Thank you.
But I mean, it's up to you guys.
What does the board wish? Should we
Let's just,
wait for the memo?
didn't you send something out?
I didn't yet. I
No.
just,
Oh, I thought there was
There's one
something.
page on the agenda.
I pulled some stuff together and looked at it.
Okay, well, you can summarize. You got 7 minutes.
Good.
Well,
Oh, you need,
I won't, hopefully I won't.
you need to solve the order.
You have to
first.
call.
Yeah, are you, so Karen, you're okay with this?
Yeah. I'm
Okay.
fine. Mhm.
So we'll call the order, the committee of the board. This is not the regular business meeting, so this is the informal working session. There is one agenda item, 2.1. Right, discuss county board authority and local government entities. We'd asked the county attorney to look into this, and Ms. Sonneman, if you could give us a summary of what you discovered.
Yeah, just briefly, I had looked at several sources of information. First of all, the Township Officers Association, and looked at their materials to see what kind of discussion they had about their authority, meetings, running meetings, things like that. They also had a section about open meeting, which is, I think, what is at issue here. And looking at the open meeting law from the Department of, well, it's called the Data Practices Office, but it's part of the Department of Administration for the state of Minnesota. And one of the myths of the open meeting law is that public has a right to speak, and that's a myth. It's at the discretion of the governing body. So they do have, at least under my very quick review, and that's come up before in other things. But the key thing too is that townships have their own governing authority, as do counties, but both counties and townships are creatures of the state, and were created by the state. So it's really this, if there's an issue where a township may be acting at least toward anyone that may feel aggrieved, they probably should talk to like their legislative representative or Attorney General's office, things like that. But really, there's nothing that the county, because we were asked, can the county do anything? And it's my opinion based on that very kind of quick surfacey look, but counties can't tell townships what to do. So.
We can share opinions or express an opinion, but we
Yes.
have no authority to tell
Right,
them
you
what to
can't tell
do.
them how to run their meetings, how to, give notice, how to set up their agendas, how to say, yes, you have to ask, when somebody asks to be on the agenda, put them on the agenda. There are some, I would say there are some laws that if elected person, and township officers are elected persons, is acting in a way that raises to the level of malfeasance, then my office might get involved, but from what I've been told, this is not anything close to that. It's just, the decision of the
Each
board.
town board has.
Each town
a
board
choice.
has, and again, under the
To have
open
a
meeting
public
law,
comment
there's no
section or not.
requirement that people are allowed to speak or be on the agenda.
All right, thank
Yeah.
you. Any other questions?
What's malfeasance? I mean, what's the definition? I mean, it's bad behavior, but
Bad behavior or,
and what is it?
acting, I wouldn't want to say fraudulently in office, but taking advantage of their position in a way that harms others.
Okay.
Or they're not doing their duty under the law. They've been sworn to follow the Constitution and the Constitution of the state of Minnesota, so.
Oh, you.
So if somebody wanted to bring up the malfeasance
Yeah.
issue to light, you would have to
Well, they,
take that on, or?
I don't, well, it's a really hard standard to prove, so
I
I'm
mean,
not
would we have to
encouraging it.
defend, or would we, or they would have to hire their own attorney to?
They would first have to probably go to the law enforcement and make a complaint, and then law enforcement would investigate, and then they would send it to our office because we investigate, or we review cases,
Okay,
so.
you might want to put, you might be being asked to do that, so just so you're,
Well, yeah, and you, and
of
the
the
board doesn't
process.
have any jurisdiction over that.
Yeah,
either,
okay.
So, yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Ms. Sonneman? Thank you for looking into that. Thank you
Yes,
for
I will.
letting us know. So, Marcia, will you get back to the
well,
members or should we?
can you draft something to Ms. Cordray? She
Yeah,
was the one that,
she contacted me and I will.
okay, maybe
yes,
can you share with her?
I will. Yeah.
That, yeah,
And I had had a conversation with her too. And.
and I can follow up also.
Yeah,
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Do that.
Anything else?
No,
With that, we conclude the committee of the board. We have 5 minutes until the regular business meeting begins.
Try not to crunch in the microphone.
you have to hold it in your mouth.
You don't have a stop.
I know.
If you want to go and come back, Maureen. If you want to go and come back, you have 5 minutes.
Little more privacy.
We're trying to switch you.
Public comment, board minutes, then a public hearing, then consent comments. All right,
Yeah,
Yeah. Mhm.
it'll confuse you, but
you guys can help guide me.
we won't let you get too far off track.
And she's it's line. All the same things.
We have another person that wants to haul garbage. Don't we have quite a few in Winona? Next
20 some,
level.
I bet.
Huh?
20 some, I bet.
I mean, we have a lot of them. I mean, this is a new one. This is brand, I've never heard of this place. Next level. Next level builders. Let's see.
It's like. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I got like really nice.
Here, speaking of the door here, then 292 says approved for Gerald and Greenhousen.
Yeah.
We gotta figure this out. It just don't.
Oh, you're right.
It's three meetings.
But then in the summary, I think we're saying, it says the petition is like this. So I think the one staff is mixing it all up.
Great there.
We're creating part of our own problem.
Too many days lately. I'm with Carl out of town. Me, Chuck.
That's right. I think we're creating something.
Well, that was quick.
Yeah.
Then Schultz did this.
Right? Yeah.
That's even more embarrassing.
It can be. Especially if it's loud.
Breakfast is long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So. And they're going to the one that is now very.
Josh, are you ready? Get me, you're ready, right? Greg, you're ready. Marcia, when you're ready, please.
Just the clock.
That could be all night.
Yeah, just bang it. Bang that gavel out.
Please come.
Beautiful, damn nice.
Yes.
Good evening. We'll call to order the county board. Please rise as we say the pledge of allegiance. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Good evening.
The first item on our agenda is public comment. At every county board meeting, members who are present or people who are joining us online may come to the podium or speak up, and you have 2 minutes. When you come to the podium, please state your name and address, please. So if there's anyone here wishing to address the county board, and if you speak, the county board is not able to respond. We're here to listen to anything. And on the 2 screens, you'll also have a timer to keep track of the 2 minutes. Anyone present like to address the county board? Anyone online? All right.
Hi, this
Go
is
ahead.
Ralph Weingarten online.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Ralph Weingarten, Falk and Foster at 1428 Trailside Court Northwest, Grand Rapids, Michigan, 49504. Just here on behalf of Hemp Hill LLC in support of the conditional use permit item for the proposed wireless telecommunication tower facility. That's on your agenda later on under general business, item 10.2. Just wanted to let you know I'm available for questions if there are any. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think we had one person from the audience, at least one that was walking up.
Good evening. My name is Ann Joria, 344 Knott Valley Drive. The time has come to move forward with the ban on future puppy mills. The residents of Winona County have made it very clear that this is not the type of business we want in our community. Keeping dogs confined in kennels to mass-produce puppies for pet stores may make money for a handful of people, but this outdated, cruel business model goes against our community values. We are better than this. This is about a quality of life issue. Welfare is not just about people. It's also about how we treat our animals. With 12 kennels currently permitted, we are already known as the puppy mill capital of Minnesota, not a reputation we're proud of. We've been asking for action on this issue for many years, only to deal with setback after setback, kicking the can down the road. Please take action, ban future permits now, and take the time to review standards and enforcement efforts for the existing kennels so that hundreds of dogs and puppies stuck in these kennels are protected. Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the audience or online that would like to address the county board? Good evening.
Hello, my name is Ann Olson, with a group called Animal Folks, address 1041 Grand Avenue, St. Paul, Minnesota. I'm here today to speak in regards to the dog breeding issue. As you know, working with residents, we have collected and submitted over 900 petitions in opposition to these kennels and in support of animal welfare and action. To reiterate what was stated at the last meeting, we are asking for action to ban now future permits for these dog breeding facilities. For the existing facilities already permitted, we understand more time is needed to discuss and develop licensing requirements and measurable standards. But I did want to just wrap this up by saying thank you to board members who have really taken the time over the years to listen to this issue and to listen to residents and understand that the general welfare of a community includes how animals are treated. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience or online that would like to address the county board? Two more invitations. Is there anybody present or online that would like to address the county board?
Good evening. My name is Gail Getzman, 22036 East Burns Valley Road. I just want to state that my colleagues, what my colleagues have already said, I agree with. This thing has been going on too long. My opinion is people that sell puppies are people that live way in the country. We're called puppy mills because there's for a reason. The people that buy these animals are not trained or socialized. I feel that if people sell, these kind of people sell to themselves and keep to themselves, fine, that's their business. But if they're going to sell to the public in pet stores, then they should have some kind of regulation like my father had with his herd of dairy cattle that were inspected. They had to be regulated every year or every other year. I don't quite recall, but I remember we had strict regulations when we sold milk from our dairy cattle. People that sell puppies and have dogs or kittens or any kind of companion animal should have some kind of regulation from people who know what they're doing. And I think this group needs to do their job and have this done properly. We need humane treatment of companion animals. Thank you for listening to me. I'm compassionate about this because I've had one dog. My dad gave me one dog to raise puppies out of when that was my spending money. We didn't get any other money other than that. And that dog was a big job to take care of, especially if she had puppies. So thank you for listening.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present that would like to address? Welcome.
Yes, I'm Alita Johnson, and I'm at 104 Main Street, apartment 116, Winona, Minnesota. And I won't make this very long, but I'm very thankful to all of you for listening to our request for the to stop the possible production more puppy mills. Very, very thankful that this proposal is moving forward. And I want to thank you all again. And I also agree with everything that's been said. I'm so against these puppy mills. And I just feel that these animals don't really have a voice, and we are their voice. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the county board?
Hello, my name's Rob Rowe. I live at 514 West Wabasha Street here in Winona. I just want to thank the board for considering this proposal, and I'd like to offer my support for it, my opposition to puppy mills here in Winona, and my support for these regulations that will improve animal welfare in Winona. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that would like to address the county board? I'll ask 2 more times. Is there anyone else that would like to address the county board? Anybody online would like to address the county board? Hearing none, we'll then close the public comment. That moves us on to item 5, and I'm going to ask my fellow county board commissioners to help me because tonight's agenda is a little more complex than usual. So the next item on the agenda is to approve county board minutes from August 13th, from both the regular county board meeting and from the closed session before.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Elsine, seconded by Commissioner Meyer. Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries 5-0. That then takes us to item 6, I'm sorry, 7.1, conduct public hearing to enact housing trust fund ordinance.
I'll move to open the public hearing.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Olson to open the public hearing. Any other discussion? All's in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. We are then going to open the public hearing. Is that Ms. Baranik will start us off? Welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. I'm Buffy Baranik, Executive Director of SEMTRA. With me tonight, I also have Patrick Mitchner, who is our grant writer and who also will help administer our housing trust funds at SEMTRA. We had a lengthy discussion on August 13th on the housing trust fund. I will not go through all those details unless there are specific questions, but I will give a little bit of a background of why we're here, why we're doing the public hearing. In December of 2024, we approved the SEMTRA levy. As part of that levy, we also agreed to fund a housing trust fund. Once we decided to fund the housing trust fund, we had to set it up and create it. And that's what we are here tonight to do, is to take a step in setting that up. So we've brought forward an ordinance for the public to comment on, county board to ask questions on. And then at a following board meeting, we will ask for approval of that ordinance. So currently, we have the SEMTRA levy funding that housing trust fund. Just really, really top level. The ordinance itself talks about the purpose and the intent of the local housing trust fund, talks about the trust funding, the different sources, the oversight, advisory and distribution, terms of affordability, and then also the powers of the administrator and the responsibilities. So with that, I will just pause and see if anyone has any questions or comments.
Do any commissioners have any questions or comments? Commissioner Warden?
Yes. Buffy, we've talked at SEMTRA, other counties have done these same things, but there are different ways to control the dollars that Winona, within the SEMTRA organization, the representative area, excluding the city of Winona. There's different ways that we can control the dollars, what we exactly want them used for, not used for, and can that be changed on a regular timeline, or is it once you set it, it's set?
The ordinance is set up in a way for it to be very flexible. How we're envisioning this is we would set up an RFP at a point in time once there's enough funds in there to do that, to actually have an RFP. And then we would take those awards, or those requests for funds, and we would analyze those according to what's in the ordinance. The county board, I'll just reiterate that the county board does have significant control. I think of this as a restricted fund. Anything over $20,000 or over has to be approved by the county board. And if it is not repayable, we can't just go out and give grants. It has to have your blessing on that before we can do that.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Commissioner Meyer?
Just to follow up on Commissioner Ward's question, it is a zoning ordinance, so the county could modify the zoning ordinance through our regular practices if that was a thing that we chose to do at some point. It's a zoning ordinance like any other zoning ordinance. We have a policy that allows us to make changes to our zoning ordinance. We could follow that policy and change it at some time in the future if we wanted to.
I guess I'm not seeing that it's a zoning ordinance because housing is allowed in I'm not making the connection to housing and zoning. in this case.
It's an ordinance.
It's an ordinance, but it's not within our zoning ordinance.
That's
So would it-
an ordinance that we have the ability
Yeah.
to modify.
Yeah.
Right, right.
You're saying it's similar to.
Yep,
It's not
similar.
the
It's
same,
not
it's
this,
similar.
yeah, it
Okay,
wouldn't be under.
You lost me.
Yeah, okay,
As with any ordinance, it can be changed.
Correct.
We have a
Right.
process.
right.
Any other questions?
But it would
Go for
require, would it require a 4/5 vote, or we still haven't gotten clarity on?
Let's bring it back up.
Yeah,
Take a simple majority to change the ordinance. I got you on
still
that
haven't
one.
gotten clarity on that one. I'm still,
Commissioner Kelsey.
And maybe you're gonna get to this, Bobby, but just could you give a oversight of where the funding comes from and and maybe you're
Sure.
gonna get there.
Sure. Currently, the board has approved $45,500 to go into the Housing Trust Fund from our past levy. So that is money that we're holding, and I just can't wait to get that into the Housing Trust Fund. And then we recently came forward with our preliminary levy to continue to fund the Housing Trust Fund. And then we have the SAHA dollars that is in question.
That's the one I wanted you to elaborate on, just
Sure.
for community to understand
Okay.
why this is necessary to have this trust fund with that money.
Correct. So I think it was pointed out at the last meeting, a little bit of money doesn't have a large impact. We need to have larger dollars in the Housing Trust Fund to have true impact on housing. True impact in terms of, I'm talking about substantial rehabilitation, building of additional units. So the SAHA dollars, it's state affordable housing aid that comes down from the state to the county. The county will need to decide, of those SAHA dollars, do you want to put all of those into the Semtra Affordable Housing Trust Fund, or do you want to hold a portion of those and possibly put them into the city trust fund? That's for you to decide at a future board meeting. I believe it's $132,000 from 2024 and for 2025. So it'll be a total of $264,000. The ordinance is very specific in stating that Semtra's jurisdiction is not within the city of Winona. So we would not, the money that, when it comes in here, we would not be administering this within the city of Winona. So if you want to use your SAHA dollars within the city of Winona, just don't put them into this housing trust fund.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? Commissioner Elsie?
I'll just piggyback though, that what funds Semcra, excuse me, is also not the city of Winona. It is the rural districts that fund this.
Semtra is the HRA for the county of Winona, excluding the city of Winona.
Correct.
The city of Winona has their own HRA.
So the taxes that fund this comes from the rural residents.
Correct.
Commissioner Ward?
so with your knowledge of these SAHA dollars, this was a 2-year, kind of like a pilot program that the state legislatures have put out there. But the chances of it being ongoing funding is questionable.
I think it is as questionable as whatever the election results will be.
Okay, all right.
Piggyback on that.
Commissioner Elsie?
But there, even if we fund this and we, the county agreed to put a little money in to try to get it started because we know there's a housing need. Even if we lost what I'm going to say is the generous portion of this funding from the state, which again, I would say is just taking it out of my right pocket, but nonetheless, it's there. It doesn't mean we have to continue with it, but we could do the good that we could do with it for now. The Housing Trust Fund can sit idle.
Absolutely.
You allude to, there might be an election change that could potentially go back and fund it again. We don't have to disband, or just bar the whole thing and just, okay, it no longer exists. It can sit idle. And if there's state or federal aid money that can come in, we can apply it towards that and do the good that we can do with it, correct?
That is a great point. You're creating a fund, you're creating a restricted fund that we can hold for you, we could administer on your behalf. We just had a discussion at Sumter about 2007 and 2010, the floods that occurred, and we had to come forward to the county board and ask for funding. Boy, if we would have had a housing trust fund, we could have hired, well, we could have got resources out to the citizens a whole lot quicker had we had a housing trust fund at that point in time.
I like the idea of it being able to sit idle if there isn't funding for it, but yet if something comes back and then you alluded to some sort of a disaster, emergency, whatever it is, it's allows us to have that little bit of a
Yep.
cushion there.
Could use it that way. Yep.
Commissioner Ward.
As far as governing structure, we are, through this, we are appointing SEMSHA to be the administrative arm of this.
That is correct.
Okay, but at county discretion. But at the SEMSHA board, that board, which is multi-county appointed people, they have no authority to do anything with Winona County's Housing Trust Fund. Correct?
Correct. Let's just say we go, this is how we handled it in Goodhue County. We did an RFP, staff reviewed those, we made a recommendation, we took it forward to the SEMSHA board and said, SEMSHA board, do you approve of these? Because I don't want to be administering something that my board doesn't agree with. Then it went to county board for them to do the final approval.
The county board gets final approval.
Final say is county board.
All right, all right.
So what you're alluding to is it's our money and we're in control of it.
Absolutely.
Any other comments from the county board?
Just one, okay, so Ms. Brannick sent us some information earlier in the week about SAHA funds. The appropriation is supposedly ongoing, it's just that we got twice as much in the first 2 years. So at least through 26 and 27, we should get 65,000 each year, or roughly like that.
After the initial
After-
132,
Yeah, so
Times two.
32, 132.
32,
and then
67, 67.
65, I think. Well, I've seen the exact number, I just don't remember it, but it's half, a little under half.
Which unfortunately you can't do much with,
Nope.
but it's
Yeah.
better than nothing, I guess.
You're right.
Might get that seat.
Any other comment? Commissioner Olson?
One more question. Can there be private donations that
Absolutely.
go into that housing trust
Absolutely.
fund?
Yes.
And what are we doing to take it off the taxpayer and maybe put it on to private donations and kind of
Correct.
blowing that concept up?
Part of our housing trust fund efforts, it doesn't specifically state it in this ordinance, but in our Goodhue County ordinance, which was drafted back in 2019, it talks specifically about SEMSHA working with the county EDA to bring dollars in from businesses and or private donations. So that is definitely something we can do. We have not done that yet in Goodhue County, but yes, we need to.
And for members of the audience who might see this issue discussed in the media, there's SAHA and then there's LAHA,
Correct.
which is the 7 metro
Correct.
counties. And that is funded through a sales tax, right? That is not property tax. Or maybe I'm wrong about that, but
I cannot answer that for certain.
I think, I'm not sure, but I think that that's funded through a sales.
We
Yeah.
can look it up.
Through those 7 counties, because they have that world unto
Yes.
themselves, et cetera.
It is sales tax.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's a
Thank you,
sales-
Patrick.
So when you go shop in the cities, you're building houses.
Food for future thought. Yep. All right. So this is a public hearing. Can we open it up to the public? Any other questions from
Yeah.
commissioners?
Thank-
So this is the public hearing. If there's any member of the audience who has comments, again, the county board can't answer questions. Listen to input, and then we're not going to make a decision tonight. We'll make a decision probably at the next, or one of the next 2 meetings. I'll ask 2 more times. Is anyone present or online that would like to make any comments regarding the creation of a housing trust fund? I'll ask 1 more time. Is anybody else who would like to make a comment? Okay, I think we need a motion to close.
So move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Ward. Any other further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Sorry. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Buffy. Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Patrick. So that then moves us to consent comments and approval of agenda. I'll go around the county board. Commissioner Elsing, anything?
Oh, you caught me out guard here.
I can come back to you if you
Yeah,
want.
would you please?
Commissioner Ward,
Just one announcement, please.
Commissioner Olson,
Nothing for me.
Commissioner Meyer.
Nothing, thank you.
Just one comment at the end.
Okay. Ms. Holte,
Nothing, sir.
Ms. Solomon.
Nothing for me.
Okay. Then we'll move on to,
I'll move to approve the agenda as it was amended with the
Second,
well, there were no amendments, right?
comment from Commissioner
Thank
Elsting
you.
and
Happy-
announcement from Commissioner Ward.
Thank you.
Well, just clarity that for people, if they're trying to follow us, the agenda was amended previous to our meeting several times.
Right.
And I don't know that it said online amended, because I copied one of the first copies that came to me, and that's different than the one I have. So maybe we just make sure that it
And
says
before
amended.
we
or
approve
changed.
anything, Ms. Holte will go through and read.
Yeah.
So, so what the current motion is to approve the agenda. Motion
Right.
by Commissioner Olson, seconded by Commissioner Ward, correct? Any discussion? All's in favor, say aye.
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 It was
I
me
have
and
Meyer and
Josh.
Elsa.
Me and
Okay,
Josh.
yeah, we did
And I say aye.
Thank you,
Close, yeah.
thank you.
we closed the public
This is an
hearing.
interesting agenda tonight.
Yeah.
I'll back up.
That's what I'm saying.
Moved by Commissioner, seconded by Commissioner Elson. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Now I need a motion to approve the consent.
so moved.
Oh, it's got to be read
Oh, we
first.
want to
Gotta
read
be
it.
read first,
Yeah.
then we can do it.
Read it first.
Schulte, could you go through the consent items?
8.1, approve renewal of purchase of service and business associate agreements with St. Charles Public School District 865 for transportation of children and youth in foster care placement. 8.2, approve 2024 solid waste collection and transportation license application. 8.3, confirm payment of disbursement.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Meyer. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, consent items approved 5-0. That takes us down to general business. Item 9.1 is to discuss / approve proposed settlement agreement with Hemphill LLC. Commissioner Elsing.
So I think we'll have a site. If any discussion is needed, I think we've got some amounts to maybe discuss with some bonding issues for that. I'm in favor of moving forward with that, with the settlement, but I think we've got an underlying issue with determining not only are we going to do a bond, but what that number should be and who it should be put on. Who that bond's name should have on it.
Do we address that in 9.1 or 9.2?
9.2.
9.2 on the bond side of it?
Yeah, because that would be a condition.
We're going to add an additional condition.
Yeah.
Potentially.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that correct? Or do we need to do that in 9.2?
It goes with the second
The CUP.
application. That is, what is that, 9.2? Sorry,
Yep,
yeah, okay.
So it goes on the second side of that?
yep.
So there
9.1.
is no,
9.1, we need to approve, to accept the
Settlement.
proposed settlement between Hemp Hill and Winona County.
Was that a motion?
By
Yeah,
the way.
that'll be, I'll move. to-
was there,
Second.
was there any other discussion on that topic? Any other action items? So
It needs to, we want them to
we're missing
fulfill,
something.
well, we want them to fulfill the 180-day requirement that that was outlined in that
Correct.
too.
I
These
know
were
we're
all
missing-
conditions for the conditional.
Right, I mean, but they wanted us to state that 180-day.
Let's pause 1 second. I
Yeah.
must apologize. This motion by Commissioner Ward, seconded by Commissioner Olson. So now we're more formally into the discussion phase.
Correct.
Yeah.
What needed to be clarified at this phase, Ms. Conlon and Mr. Kranz? There was something in terms of,
Well, there was questions regarding whether a condition would be added to the conditional use permit that is being considered as the next item
That's 9.2.
as a requiring a bond, and whether that needed to be incorporated into this settlement agreement.
Which is where I thought we were going to have it in that settlement
That was just a
agreement.
condition.
The I don't think it's necessary to be in the settlement agreement because the settlement agreement doesn't require you to approve the conditional use permit. So you could address that when you approve the conditional use permit.
Okay.
That's okay, as long as it's addressed,
They're
that's
separate
what I-
actions. But there were basically timeframes and contingencies listed in the settlement agreement that have to be met for us to continue the process.
And I think we can put that on 9-2, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Right.
Any other discussion? So all in favor of the motion to approve the settlement agreement with Hemp Hill LLC, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That brings it down to 9.2, approve conditional use permit for Gerald and Joan Zenke. Doug, do you start us off on that, or is that something the board would take the lead on?
I think we can.
Did we table it?
Well,
I don't think we did we?
Did we table it?
uh,
So I would move to take it off the table?
I don't know.
We did table it we did actually table it.
Okay.
Second.
All right.
Discussed it.
Yeah.
All right, so I move to take it off the table?
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer, seconded by Commissioner Olson to take it back off the table and bring it up for discussion. Any other discussion? All's in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you, Commissioner Meyer.
So before you is the conditional use permit for Gerald and Joanne Zenke, also known as the second application. And there was discussion about whether they should have a bond for ensuring the safe removal of the structure. Those bonds can range anywhere from $25 all the way up to $150,000. And the brief amount of research I did on that topic. I was going to say, this has already been approved by the Plan Commission.
And,
Is there a motion to,
well,
I'm sorry, we're already discussing Commissioner Nelson and Commissioner Olson.
and the bond is specific to a tower structure, that dollar amount?
Yeah.
And then if we were to approve this conditional use permit, can we have a, I guess, condition that it's approved that all items in 9.1 are carried out? Is that an appropriate way to phrase that? Including the 180-day scenario that Commissioner Ward brought up, the bonding, and assuming that 9.1 is carried through. If it's not, we can retroactively deny that permit if 9.1 is not carried through.
Yeah, I would say that it would be better to include the specific conditions on the permit. And the permit, the settlement agreement allows you to rescind it if those, everything contained in the settlement agreement is not performed. And so you wouldn't need that to be in the conditional permit because you're acting off of the settlement agreement. And that gives you the right to rescind it if they don't meet the criteria in the settlement agreement.
So the only language, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only language in 9.2 then that I'm hearing by approving 9.2, it automatically implies that 9.1 will happen. And if it doesn't, that's rescinded. And so the only thing we really need to add is this bond with a dollar amount as a potential motion to approve this conditional use permit. Is that correct?
In addition.
As an addition to.
Additional condition.
Correct.
Right.
Oh,
Condition 12.
Yeah, it'd be 12.
12.
Commissioner Nelson, are you finished?
with,
Yeah, I think we're missing one other thing, but go ahead.
Commissioner
so
Olson,
with
that-
respect to this topic, right? Okay, so the settlement agreement, I'm looking at the second page, item number 4, failure to obtain necessary permits and approvals. So it does specify that they need to get those permits and approvals within 180 days. I guess I thought that I understood that we should add
Yeah.
language to
Yeah,
the,
verbatim that.
to the conditions.
Yeah,
And so there are 11 conditions currently.
Mhm.
So what we're talking about is potentially proposing a 12th condition with that language?
With the bond.
With-
And with the bond,
Two conditions. I would
two.
make.
So we're
two
technically adding two.
12 and
So
13.
12 and 13.
Am I right?
that's correct. Yes,
Yeah.
those are the two items that are not currently conditioned that haven't previously been discussed.
So, Mr. Katz, can you help us with the language,
Well,
crafting
one
the
quick
exact
thing,
language for
I'm
these
sorry, how about
conditions?
Commissioner, just back to order, the order of the hands raised, Commissioner Olson, then Commissioner Elsing.
Yeah.
So I see in the conditions, we have condition 7 that it must be dismantled and removed. In reference to the bond, how are we gonna do that? And then the petitioner shall submit a deconstruction plan, which would go towards a bond too.
Well, you're saying we could add it to 7.
7 already
Yeah.
done, right?
Yeah,
I think-
why not? Yeah.
Commissioner Elsing, then Commissioner Meyer.
Well, that's where I was going was, is there something we can add it to and/or before we jump down adding this, we should probably discuss an amount.
Yes, I think it is, can we discuss an amount? And then we have a representative who, Mr. Weingartner, who spoke during public comment, who's representing Hemp Hill. He said he was available. I would ask him if he's agreeable to the amount once that's sort of recommended out or
Mr.
sorted.
Weingarten, are you still with us? Is that okay with you? If we're going to propose an amount based on common practice in terms of deconstruction bond, right?
Yeah, I'm still with you. I've done a few of these lately, and they've been running kind of in the 30,000 range because you got the value of the steel as well. But I'm available to discuss.
Okay, thank you,
But who,
Commissioner.
with that comment, the steel, but we don't own this, we don't own the cell tower, so I don't think we could, we couldn't sell it and gather the money from something we don't own.
They abandoned it.
Well, and again, how do we determine if dismantled and removed after one continuous year of vacancy at the tower owner's expense? What is a vacancy? I mean, there's no signal going off of it. Is that considered vacancy?
Mr. Weingarten, is that a question you can help us with?
I would consider vacancy to mean no operation, no wireless service being provided from the facility.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess.
Commissioner Elsing?
So, we have to kind of find a number here that we feel is going to satisfy the local people that have to look at this and make sure that it can be done and it doesn't get hooked on the taxpayer or something like that. You brought up 30,000, the value of the steel, et cetera, et cetera. The range we've heard is 25 to 150,000. So of course, go high and go low, right? The classic game. Is there a true fair number that we could propose that isn't going to hold this up so we can move forward that you think? I don't know if we can do 30,000. We're 5,000 off the bottom from the research that we have. Is there something arbitrarily somewhere in the middle, a little closer, that I think would pacify the public and pacify Hemp Hill? I'm just asking your opinion.
In my opinion, you could go up to 50,000. Generally, it's just a dismantling and haul away type job. So it's not, complicated work to do. And, if it's abandoned and someone's disposing of the tower, then again, the value of that metal comes into play too. But yeah, to just take it down and haul it away easily fits within, that low end of the range. So, I guess 50,000 is a round number.
My thinking on that is the tower is one thing. That's actually probably the easy part. We can just push it over. It's generally the concrete, just like we deal with big structures in ag. It's generally the concrete, removing the concrete. That's the bigger problem that costs a lot of money to dispose of, because it's considered hazardous now and just the amount of energy it takes to get it out of the ground. So I'm more concerned about the concrete pad in which it's set in, plus the outrigger pads in which hold the guy wires. That tends to be where the expense is. So the steel is one thing. That's the easy part. It's the concrete. That's another issue.
So do they have history of taking out the concrete, or did it just knock them down?
Yeah.
Without a question, Commissioner.
It was. It's a statement and a question at the same time. It's, that's,
Have they taken any down?
yeah. So that's where I would suggest we have a little bit more in there for that. So.
Well, I'll ask, he doesn't,
Commissioner Ward?
yeah, Mr. Weingarten. How many towers have you taken down? The question is, are you just taking the tower down, or have you experienced taking the concrete out that anchors the tower? Because this is.
We have not taken any down, but the agreements that we have in place with the landowners generally call for the concrete to be ground down to like 3 feet below depth, and then the soil restored.
Get it out.
But we haven't taken any down. I've just been involved in getting estimates. And again, I just had one, and the estimates came in around 28, 29, 32, that range for a similar tower.
You're kind of agreeing to this bonding concept, but so would Hemp Hill be carrying the total expense of the bond, or are you passing that on to the landowner, the Zenkis? They're not represented here tonight, and I don't see them online.
Hemp Hill would have to obtain the bond. They would obtain the bond.
And
That would
list
not be
the county
any
as
financial difficulty on the Zinkies.
Okay, and list the county as the holder of the bond? Okay. Just one last question here. Number 8, the attachment of advertising devices to any part of the structure shall be prohibited. So what do you mean, like signs, or like if AT&T wants to put one up there, they can't put AT&T on their
Yeah, nothing of an advertising nature, only warning or informational signs, like there would be a number saying FCC registration number, blah, 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 or in
there's
case
warning
of,
signs on these towers, isn't there? That they may exceed, be careful for your health because it may exceed levels of I forgot, I had copies of them at home and such, but you will be putting those warning signs on the tower.
yeah, we put all required warning signs and informational signs, which have the FCC registration and like a emergency contact number if there's a need to get a hold of somebody, et cetera.
Okay.
What it can't say is George's Bar 3 miles.
Yeah.
Vote for Commissioner Ward.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. You didn't want us to deny it because of health and by federal law and stuff like that, but you have to put warning signs on saying that it may exceed certain health standards. So just my point in case. Thank you.
So Commissioner Olson, do you have?
I was gonna make a motion.
Okay.
75,000.
I'd go 100.
I'm gonna make a motion that we add to condition number 7 that a bond be filed in the amount of $65,000 for the dismantling and removal of the structure after, in reference to condition 11, after 1 year of disuse.
So you're going to add it to number 11?
No.
7.
7. Okay, so a bond will be issued in the amount of $65,000. Is there a second to that motion?
Wait, as the motion just to change the conditions?
For this motion is just to add in.
Add that to condition
Oh,
7.
yeah, then I'll second.
And then we're going to create another motion for another.
Yep.
Okay.
That's why I asked.
So any other discussion, Commissioner Ward?
Yeah, and the representative from Hemp Hill, all things you have said are documented in this conditional use permit. So you kind of alluded to that if we have to take it down, the county can recoup the money from the steel. Is that correct? Or not correct? I mean,
I didn't
65
say usually the contractor that does the job, that's part of their, if you're getting them to haul away material, they could dispose of that, and that would be part of that piece. We're not giving, the county anything. It's just a matter of what would it cost to get rid of that stuff. And I was just saying that factors into the cost of the job is
Okay.
if the contractor is taking down and removing and disposing of the steel, that value helps them in their bid.
Thank you, Commissioner Elsing.
Look at it this way. If Hemp Hill goes under, they walk away. Nobody wants to be responsible for these structures. It will become the landowner and or potentially the county's issue, and the county's going to hire somebody. And part of that bid is they're going to say there's a value
have
to
it.
the scrap steel. It's going to become competitive as to who might potentially want to take that down. Now, $65,000 today and $65,000 in 30 years are going to be two different things.
Yeah,
And that's
I
the
guess I don't know.
value that you have to look at in a bonding aspect, that it isn't today's dollars, it's tomorrow's dollars that it's going to take to pull that thing down.
Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, this is just the first of what will probably be 2 motions.
Correct.
To add language to item number 7, the issuance of a bond in the amount of $65,000. Does anything else need to be said in addition to that?
I don't believe so.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I opposed. I don't think it's high enough for 25 years out.
If I'm corrected, the motion passes 4-1, correct?
Yep.
All right.
Generally, double.
Is there another or more discussion and or a motion with
Dollars.
the last remaining language addition?
Double.
County Attorney Kranz, do you have some sample language for us to propose for a condition 12?
I think so.
Okay, so then I'm going to move condition 12 as per the advice of council.
So this would be a condition, basically says that if within 180 days, they have to obtain all the approvals needed to begin development. So it could be phrased as petitioner shall obtain all government permits and approvals necessary to begin development of the property within 180 days of written approval of this conditional use permit. And that's still having it says they must, but it also, in the settlement agreement, you have the option of whether you would rescind the conditional use permit. So it could be a situation where they don't have it at 180 days, but the board decides to give them more time.
That's your motion.
That's my motion.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer and seconded by Commissioner Olson. For members of the audience present and online, we usually when we entertain items, they're in writing, but just for the audience to know, we saw this language in the settlement agreement. So we're just reiterating the language that is already in the settlement agreement. So Commissioner Ward.
The question for legal is if there are many permits that are required that the county board has no control over. If they can't get some permit, what does that do for us in our process?
So this includes all those permits, regardless of whether they're issued by the county. So you would have the option, if they did not obtain them within 180 days, of rescinding approval of the conditional use permit.
Okay, all right.
Any other questions? All in favor of the motion to add item number, the 12th condition, which was the language that we saw in the settlement agreement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. That then takes us to,
We have to approve the
Well, then you
whole.
have to approve the
I
whole
apologize.
thing,
Those,
CUP.
where that was just to approve
The second item,
the revisions.
I make a motion to approve the conditional use permit for Gerald and Giant Zenke based on the two additions that answer it.
Is that a second, Commissioner Ward?
No,
Second.
It's a motion by Commissioner Elsie, seconded by Commissioner Olson. Commissioner Ward?
I don't know where this comes from. When you have the facts, you have the findings of fact, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Number 4 to me just seems like it's not a fact, it's a opinion. So I think we need to analyze, it says wireless community facilities are necessary utility. I don't know if that's a fact. I mean, again, I have a little burn about cell towers in my neighborhood that I'll have to look at, like I said, for the rest of my days on this God-given green earth. And it's not something that the community really totally embraces. It's the lesser of evils for location. They're okay with it. They don't embrace it. They still find the need for it questionable. And so I just have to state that from my constituents' standpoint, that it's not something that they really wanted. It kind of got forced on the community.
Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weingarten.
Thank you.
That takes us down to item
We're approving.
9.3, receive presentation on the reentry assistance program plus. Is that from the Sun? Thank you.
If you're looking at it.
Members of the county board, myself and 2 of my colleagues in the justice and mental health systems will be talking to you about the county reentry assistance program, which is called RAP Plus. Those other 2 individuals will be Eric Sievers, who is the executive director of Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center, and sorry, I'm blanking out, it's been a long day. Sierra Shear, who is one of the mental health individuals who provides services at the Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center. We're here tonight to ask for your support and approval of bridge funding for the fourth quarter of 2024, which is about $12,500 for the critical recovery support services that are provided by this program. We're asking for that because this program has been funded by a federal grant for over 6 years, 2 federal grants actually through the Justice Mental Health Collaborative Program. But that's going to end on September 30th. We're also asking for your support to approve funding for the RAP Plus program to continue in 2025. And I've made formal requests for those budget requests to the board through County Administrator Holte. RAP Plus has been a very successful and integral part of the system-wide and strategic work of Winona County through its CJCC to provide early intervention and prevention and reentry services, which will be mentioned, by the way, when you see the website for the referendum. They'll be mentioning the reentry services to individuals involved in the criminal justice system or likely to become re-involved, and particularly those who struggle with mental health and or chemical dependency. As it said, Justice Mental Health Program means we focus on mental health. In fact, part of getting approval to be part of the program is getting a mental health assessment. Our partner under the grant for the second grant has been Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center. The program can continue with the individuals who work collaboratively, and there are many, to make this program successful. And they also have many other duties. They don't just do RAP. And these individuals are here tonight because of their commitment to the program. And I asked them to stand so you can see them. Sorry, I didn't ask you guys to do this ahead of time, but you'll do it, right? Eric Sievers, Executive Director of Hiawatha Valley Mental Health Center. Sierra Shear, mental health worker from Hiawatha Valley. Trish Chandler, our jail intake worker. Katie Shield, our jail social worker. Karen Heider, our treatment court coordinator. Kelsey Horst, our Winona County Jail Program Director. Gwen Herbert, our new CJCC Executive Director, who's also replacing our longtime Executive Director, Colleen Engel, who was instrumental in many of the programs through CJCC, including RAP. And I saw him come in a little later, but our newest Winona County District Court Judge, the Honorable Dwight Lumen, who I would like to introduce to the county board too. So he's been a great addition, and he's now chairing our courts committee in CJCC. And I am the county department head who supervises the overall administration of RAP. We have a very short program for you. You notice a very lengthy PowerPoint in your packet. We're not going to go through that, 45 pages, but please read it. But I just want to point out that the greatest need that people have, and demonstrated by our data, the top 3 is housing, transportation, and mental health treatment. So the Housing Trust Fund that you discussed tonight is of great importance. So I will stop talking and give the mic over to Eric Sievers, who then will introduce Sierra. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Eric.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks, Attorney Sonneman. I don't know if Sierra's here, so I wrestled Karen to tell a story of.
Okay.
This program, and I'm not going to go through every slide because there's a lot, but one of the things that I wanted to point out is that this is a really something that this county has done for the community that is a very, very, very unique and a very good way thing. The only county and place in the state that received this grant, thanks to Kayleen Engel and all the great work she's done. But it actually is a very special program, and in a number of ways. One is I've been in this business for over 30 years. 20 of them have been in Winona County. I was a child protection investigator. I did home family therapy, and I've been with Hiawatha Valley now for about 12 years, 5 in this role. And what makes this program so special is the relationship and the partnership, which County Attorney Sonneman mentioned. It's not very common for an agency, a mental health provider, to partner with a criminal justice program. But as we all know, people involved with the criminal justice programs have high needs in the mental health world. So the ability to partner and work together really has met people where they need to be met. So the unique funding is another thing that was special and can continue to be special about this program, because that funding, which was called Recovery Support Services, and you can see in the outcomes that it really helped people go from homeless to having a home or living with family members or renting. And it's really shows in those outcome slides, which there's about 9 slides, that it shows people going from the left to the right. So going from homeless, no employment, no education, financially hardship, to much better off. I know County Attorney Sonneman mentioned the investment being requested into the community. It's a very, very small number compared to what the cost would be if we don't support people in this way. So the enhanced reentry part of this program has really, and the results show it in your slides, has resulted in a high percentage of people in the program completing it. Approximately 74% have completed the program successfully. And those recovery services, I have to reference my slides here. So just to be specific here. Housing, rental application fees, payment for rent, utility bills, health, including insurance premium co-pays, helping people get funding for assessments to see if they're eligible for mental health services, clothing, shoes, transportation, childcare, work-related funding to help people gain employment, education, application fees, GED, books, phone cards. Those are some of the ways we've been able to use the funding. And when you think and hear about all those things, I know there's been a lot of information, education about social determinants of health. And what research tells us about that is that about 40% of people's health is based on social determinants of health. So things like education, employment, income, when those are good, and when people have education, when people are employed, when their income is at a good place, their health comes are better in general than other people. 40% of those things affect health. As a mental health provider, I don't like to say 20% of health is by treatment, but it is a small percentage of healthy outcomes for people is the treatment. But if they don't have that other 40%, they have a harder time getting to treatment. What we've seen in this program, and I already mentioned a bit, that providing funding for housing has resulted in people getting their mental health needs met better. It just has happened with this program, and Sierra will have a story to share how that has really had a positive impact on an individual's life. What I know about unmet mental health needs, having been in the field for as long as I've been, individually, people with unmet mental health needs, higher risk of chronic heart disease, increased risk for comorbidity. Met many people over the years that because of their untreated mental health or challenges getting their mental health needs met, they over the years have lost family, friends, and are very isolated. So that's some of the harmful effects of unmet mental health or substance use needs. At the community level, it's a great impact on the community if people's mental health or substance use needs are not being met. Increased things that are negatively impacting society include reduced economic stability, homelessness, unemployment, poverty, increased debt, increased utilization of emergency services versus routine physical health care. And one number just to have in mind as you make your decision on this is it's about approximately roughly $3,000 a day for inpatient hospitalization for mental health needs, which is way less than what you would be funding for a person for a year through these preventative services. So it'll be a great investment in the community. Plus, there's the cost if someone's in the hospital, they might lose their employment, they might lose their housing. So that's just the very initial cost. So I think that's, I don't know if people have questions for me related to any of the slides. I know Kayleen did a lot of work on the slide deck, but any questions for me?
Any questions for Eric?
Well, these are such good empathetic programs. You got a grant. Why did the initial grantors always figure somebody else is going to pick up the tab?
Well, and one of the things we did change with the program because we recognized, 6 months, maybe a year ago, that we had to figure out a way to sustain it without asking others for the funding, is we switched how our agency staffs a program to have it be staffed by people who have the ability to pay medical assistance, and that's helped with sustainability. So this reminds me a little bit, in the county, there's a Child and Family Service Collaborative, which exists to help fund children and families in the same way this would for adults. So it's a real gap in our state that there isn't a funding to help people with social determinants of health. But I know the program isn't completely asking the county to fund it. It is some of our services we provide to support these individuals is, which Sierra can share more about, is we do bill medical assistance because they have mental health needs. We provide a treatment service for them, and we are able to recruit funding through medical assistance.
So like half, or what portion? I mean,
I think I'd have to look at, I don't have the exact, it's probably not half. I'd have to look to see what it
that's
is.
okay. I mean, but it's not covering the cost by any means.
If I could
No,
also add
less than
add to that, and maybe I should get up there because.
Well, again, so this is, you said only a couple counties in the whole state of Minnesota have a program like this. I think that's what you said. Did I?
We are the only recipient of this grant in the state. And the reason why I think it is that way is because people don't think creatively to come up with solutions that need creative solutions to complex problems.
Okay, but
Yeah.
people in other counties don't have the same problems and such. I go back to our governor. He says, he always advertised and talks about one Minnesota. We're all in this together. Well, that's a line of, we're not, obviously we're not. So we were lucky enough to get a grant, but now to continue the work, you're looking for a good, funding source from the county, and the county only has property taxes. So to link all these great services and everything to property tax base is difficult. But the federal government, they have many pots of money. State government has many pots of money, but they always seem to throw it down to the lowest level. Maybe we should ask the townships to fund this. We just had an issue with the townships, everybody goes to the next layer of government to continue funding
Is it
things.
fair to say that your concern isn't with how effective or needed this program is? It's just who has to pay for it?
Who-
Because we're now being asked to pay for.
A good portion.
I guess.
Yeah.
So I think that we all agree that it's an effective and needed program. The question is just
If-
how do you pay for it?
Yeah, and if I could just speak to what you were asking, Commissioner Ward, too. Yes, this was started with a federal grant, which actually we were one of 9 in the country to get the second one. So not just the state of Minnesota. And there was a lot of work put in those grants. It wasn't just something we just, happened to do. And in the first grant cycle, we were able to fund the jail intake worker position, which was very important and does more than just the RAP Plus program. Ms. Chandler does all the bail evaluations and works together with the jail social worker, which was then Ms. Shield, was then funded by the second grant. And and I'm totally grateful to the board for funding those positions as county employees. So you did, decide that these programs, not just RAP, but the work that Katie Shield does as a jail social worker, I could stand here for hours and tell you how much that improves the outcome of many people in the justice system, just having a jail social worker and not just the RAP program. And also Trish Chandler's work, she was a jailer in Wabasha County, understands, the system from that angle. She also is on our treatment court team, as well as Karen Heider is our treatment court coordinator. So we work together. As Eric said, this is one of the most, I think, unique, and Winona County was awarded the NAMI award for our CJCC many years ago. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about this, but what we're asking for, because you've already created these positions and they do much more other work than just the RAP program, we're asking for $51,000 a year for the recovery support services. And then we're asking for some additional dollars, perhaps up to $36,000, probably less. That was what the grant manager was getting, that was paid for by the grant, but it's going to be less because we don't have to do all the grant reporting. So it's less than $100,000. And as Eric said, $3,000, right, for treatment. So boy, you're going to blow through that, in less than a month, probably, or more. So anyways, I don't want to get,
Wait,
but
you say you have a figure in here somewhere of 30, I don't know what that figure is, $38,385. What's that figure mean?
I'm not sure which slide you're referring to.
Slide it is,
And part of it is, this is a presentation, and, we can get into the details
Okay.
at the budget meetings. Yeah,
Where this is just
right,
receiving
this is a presentation. So,
Time is
sure.
running out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a push. It's a push.
I was just going to mention too that, I think this is downstream investment a bit. So people that I've met over the years and meet a lot of people with significant mental health needs who with supportive services are able to be employed, are able to have their own place that they rent. They actually contribute to the economy and do give back to the county that way financially through their contribution. And some of the stories I read about people who are like volunteering now because of the participation in the program. So it is the money up front, but I think, and I don't have the number, which I'd love to have the number.
I'm referring to slide 87. And again, you can get back to me on it.
Sure.
You threw it out there. You put it out there, so I don't know what it means. Somebody did.
One, and I think it's that part to just, I ask you to consider is there's the cost, and I know 30 years in this work that it supports people with employment and positively contributing to the economy. So let's mention that.
yeah,
Did you
and
want-
I was going to say, if we'd like to also have, I think Sierra's here, right? Did you get her? Yeah, there she is. To hear the real stories. I mean, this affects real people. So Sierra, you have the floor. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'd intended to spotlight one individual, but instead want to kind
I'm
of.
sorry, can you tell us who you are and what your role?
Yes, I am Sierra. I am one of the two mental health practitioners. So it's me and then Trish back here as well. So
And are
working.
I'm sorry, are you a county employee or?
I am funded through the grant currently, and then I work with Hiawatha Valley.
Okay.
So.
Thank you.
Yes, so just wanted to, instead of just focusing on one individual, kind of talk about the small successes that a lot of people don't think about that contribute significantly to kind of the larger context of people's reintegration into our community. So currently working with a participant who has experienced multiple overdoses in recent months. Despite grappling with his addiction, we have collaborated the past several months, providing supports, addressing barriers, and exploring alternate options. How can this person live a healthier lifestyle? Just last week, this participant successfully secured a storage unit to temporarily house her belongings with RAP Plus funding. This enabled her to reside at an inpatient treatment facility, which they actually checked into today. She's receiving essential services to address her substance use and mental health challenges. Another participant whom I began working early in June of this year. Unhoused and living in a tent, he was able to maintain his sobriety, recovery, and maintain his employment at a restaurant. He's now residing in one of Hiawatha Valley's board and lodges. Recently graduated from his intensive outpatient treatment program this past Friday, and is now taking the steps to obtain his driver license with the assistance of Wrap Plus, and continues to craft some of the best sandwiches in town. Another participant recently discharged into homelessness after completing inpatient treatment, is now residing today in a hotel funded by Wrap Plus funds. He began a new job last week, is on the wait list for Hiawatha Valley Board and Lodge housing, and will be referred to Hiawatha Valley's SUD program to further his recovery as he pursues independent living in his community. Additionally, another participant, a single mom of 3 kids who has recently secured a 6-month YMCA family membership, allowing her children to socialize at the Child Care Watch Center while she completes assignments necessary for obtaining her bachelor's degree in human services. She's set to complete probation in October of this year and has future aspirations of becoming a licensed alcohol and drug counselor. And lastly, one of my Wrap Plus alumni who has successfully completed the Wrap Plus program recently informed me that he has been accepted into the Department of Human Services Certified Peer Specialist Training Program, which will grant him licensure in the state of Minnesota. Now, nearly a year and a half sober, he intends to become a peer specialist, offering support to individuals in the community facing mental health and substance use challenges similar to those he once encountered. I am profoundly grateful for the opportunity to work with these individuals and have witnessed day in and day out for them to strive for their goals they once deemed absolutely unobtainable as they pursue healthier living in a supportive community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the county board? I'll say a few things. I was a member in the early years of the Warming Center on the steering committee. I've led a volunteer team. I've worked with people who are facing housing insecurity, chemical addiction, mental health challenges. These issues are not separate issues. And what Winona County is doing very well as a leader in the state and the country is it's not addressing these issues in silos in terms of mental health, chemical addiction, taking all those problems and then putting social workers and law enforcement and the court system all together to address these, because this is not a problem you can solve in silos. So I am incredibly impressed and grateful for what County Attorney Sonneman and all the staff have done. And this goes back a decade or more, et cetera.
We started with the CARE program in 2009 or 8.
Yes.
Right. So,
No one who came tonight knew that, and I didn't know it myself, but you, Ms. Sonneman, had introduced some of the staff. Could Katie and Kelsey and Trish and Sierra, could you all stand up again? And Judge Lumen, welcome could you also stand as well? Judge Lumen, what I'd like to do is I'd like to give you all, for the other members of the audience, I'd like to welcome you to thank them for what they do every single day. And Karen, I'm sorry, I missed. I want to give them a round of applause. Thank you for what you do every single day. And Karen, I missed you too. Thank you so much. And welcome, Gwen. Welcome. Commissioner Olson.
I just want to mention, I see Kayleen Engels online.
Oh my gosh,
And
absolutely.
thank you, Kayleen, for all your years of work.
Also, there's air conditioning tonight, unlike
I'm joining you from my comfortable air-conditioned home in Wisconsin, and thank you. And thank you for your support.
Thank you, Kayleen.
I recognize that accent.
Yes. You're one of the visionaries that brought this program here. Thank you, Kayleen. Please.
Come up and address some things that were brought up. I'm Trish Chandler. I'm the jail intake worker. I came in 2017. And I left my job as a correction officer in Wabasha County Jail because I believed in this program, loved my job, loved it there, loved what I did. But I believed in this program, and I've seen it change over the years. I've seen people put so much hard work into it. And yes, it started with with grants. It was hard for me to leave a job, a career, to take a chance on a grant, a federal grant. But I did it because I believed in it. And I kept going, and we did another grant. And we've kept going. And that's the purpose of the grants. That's why they only award so many of them. And that's why we were awarded, or that's why they don't award so many of them. And that's why we were one of the 9, is because of all the hard work that we put in so far. And the purpose of the grants is, it's like a pilot.
Tricia, I'm sorry, could you get closer to the mic? Because what you're saying is important. I want folks at home to hear.
It's like a pilot to try new things, do different things in communities. And it's to get started. And then if you believe in us, then we ask for you to help us out. And just as we were saying, we're not asking for you to fund the whole thing. We've found different ways to make things happen. We're just looking for funding for those supportive services. We've believed in this program and we've kept going. And you guys did too, because you brought our positions into it. So we're just asking that you let us keep going with the great things that we're doing. That's all.
Ms. Sonneman, anything else?
No, I think it's been all said.
So that is just a presentation, and at a future county board meeting, we'll consider the actual requests for the
funding,
the bridge funding and possible funding for next year. Okay, well then.
Just a point of clarification then.
Yep.
The slides, do we address our questions to you?
You can.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
Fine.
if you have questions, I mean, but again, this is the presentation. I will probably be talking to Maureen to get something on the agenda for the bridge funding, because again, September 30th is upon us. Just
clarification. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So then we're moving on to item 9.4, correct? Discuss and provide direction on findings of an emergency for dog breeding facilities. And members of the audience, of course, you're welcome to stay as well, but that concludes the presentation part as well, so.
Good night.
So we'll start us off in terms of this issue.
Would you like to know?
Please. Thank you, Gwen. Thank you, Judge.
So as was discussed at the last board meeting, the first step in moving forward to enact an interim ordinance, which in this case was to not allow any further conditional use permits for dog kennels during a period of time when the issue is studied, and then make a decision on a permanent situation. What initiates that is the findings of fact that the county board arrives at to basically find that there is an emergency that warrants an interim ordinance and warrants it being studied. It's not the same as declaring an emergency. It's really just a technical requirement that a situation exists that you aren't prepared to potentially deal with what might happen, and so you need to pause for a second. So the findings, these are draft findings, and they.
Do we ask questions now? Do we pick you apart now, or do we wait till the end?
Maybe let him finish, then we'll questions.
All right.
Okay, so these are draft findings. They're basically fall into the categories of sort of saying how you got to this point, what sort of the legal basis is for taking action, and then what legally falls as a definition of an emergency. And that, for this case, is there's been a finding by the Attorney General that if a county doesn't have the information that it needs to be able to make decisions, land management decisions, that could be an emergency, just not having access to that data. And so with dog kennels, the county is somewhat in that position because of the lack of ability to get access to Board of Animal Health data and USDA data. In the case of Board of Animal Health, the data can be acquired, but it's a cumbersome process, and they sort of go by the default that sharing is the exception, not the rule. So basically, the finding is that it's consistent with the Winona County's comprehensive plan to maintain the health, safety, and welfare. That general purpose built into it would be to enact an ordinance to regulate dogs in this manner.
Okay, thank you. Questions, Commissioner Ward?
Yes, okay. I find flaws in your rationale. First of all, emergency, your definition of emergency is I think, very weak in that counties work under emergencies under several specific statutes. And you're kind of taking emergency in a very different way. We've got Ben Klinger, our emergency manager. So if you go to state statutes, there's exactly why you can do a local emergency can be declared. And we've done that in the past when we had COVID. So there's emergencies there. Public health, there's very specific reasons why you can call in an emergency. So your term for emergency, because you don't have information, to me is a very, very weak argument. And if I go down the list here, let's see. So Court of Appeals, do you have a case or something that you can reference for that? I couldn't find anything that referenced the rationale between dog regulations and general health and welfare. Do you have a court case for that?
So the case that's the county has been citing for the past few years regarding the finding that dogs are related to the health, safety, and welfare of a county is, let's see, it's Holt. Sorry, I didn't have it right in front of me, but I will pull it up.
While he's doing that, Commissioner Ward, do you have any other questions?
Yeah, and then there's another, let's see, although commercial is regulated by limited sharing. You know what? I called the USDA, I called Animal Board of Health, I called veterinarians in Lewiston, I called a couple other, I guess it was all related to Animal Board of Health and everything. And they were very willing to share information. Nobody said, no, we're not giving that to you. And you can go on, and unfortunately I was having computer problems because I'm getting fiber optic in my neighborhood.
Finally.
You can go, no, no, not yet. It won't be until after the first year when it's hooked up. But they're messing with my existing system. You can go on their website, the USDA, and pull up, and I couldn't get through the nitty gritty of it, but you can pull up reports. You can review all inspection reports. They're all on a public information website. It's USDA Animal Care Inspection Reports. And if you know their licenses, and I'm sure the planning department has the licenses, they're all open to the public. So your constant reference to we don't have information, again, I did a little homework. I mean, that is a poor, in my opinion, is a very poor reason to say we got to stop working on this because we can't get information.
Ward, if you spoke to the Board of Animal Health and they gave you information about commercial dog breeders without making a finding that it was for law enforcement purposes or public health, then they broke the law.
Right. No, they did not, but they referenced to the USDA inspection reports. No, they didn't. They were very... Yes, but you can, and anybody can put in a request for data, and they would have to honor that. So again, the information is there. You telling me that you can't get it is, I have to challenge you on that. Let's see. So you can give me the case. You got the interim ordinance, lack of access to data. Again, you put that in bold. I find that that's not the case with a few quick calls. And again, your actions are asking us to study this, and it's just, but all the existing conditional use permitted operations are allowed to continue with those conditions that were put on them at the current, at the time they applied, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so you're not jeopardizing their operations and their livelihood and their businesses, right?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Let's see. And it was interesting. So many times we talk about the city and the county. Now, this has nothing to do with your research, but the city and the county. It's amazing. The city has little to no regulations. You can have 2 licensed, you have to have a license, of course. If you apply for the license, you can have 2 dogs in your residence. They have nothing in regards to their ordinances about breeding. They do about kennels. And they were just in the newspaper the other day because somebody wants a private dog park and it's questionable because it's not in the ag zone district. But all they have is, a setback. And that was kennels, and they didn't address dog breeding, but setback, you have to have an acre per dog and 1 to 5 animals. You have to have 50-foot setback from a residence, 6 to 10, 100, and more than 10, 200 feet. But very, very limited rules and regulations within the city of Winona. And yet we're trying to, and one of the local veterinarians said these current operators are making huge investments in doing special air conditioning systems to keep their dogs cool. And they're making not only investments also with University of Pennsylvania, and then there is a program in Minnesota here about animal welfare. So they are going forward. So this declaring an emergency to me defies what county government says are emergencies.
Did you find the court case? there?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
It's Holt v. City of Sauk Rapids.
Holt, H-O-L-T?
Yes.
City
Now,
of Sauk Rapids.
now, that case is cited in the findings for basically just a well-established fact that the county has authority to regulate dogs. That case does not make or break this issue.
Because that's a city. We're not a city.
It doesn't, the case was a city, but the ruling had to do with whether dogs could be regulated and whether they related to the health, safety, and welfare.
Okay, I'll look that up. But there again, with a conditional use permit, and you've seen them, and we've had a number of them, each one has different conditions. So that's the uniqueness of a conditional use permit, is that you put different conditions to accommodate the applicant. And I think we can handle it with the current system we have.
As far as the meaning of emergency, it means different things in different contexts, as you probably know. It means something different to a firefighter than it means to the flood insurance. Emergency has a specific use here under the law, and that's not the same definition that you're thinking of when you're talking about there being an emergency.
But I couldn't find a definition for this, what you're proposing as emergency. I couldn't find any statute that relates to that, or verbiage or words or anything. So if you can direct me to that, I will continue my research.
I will.
In the documents, it was 394.34, is that correct? It was
It
page,
is in there.
it was page 59. I'm
Yep,
not sure if
that's
that got changed. Commissioner Olson and Commissioner Elsing.
I think it's safe to say that Commissioner Ward will vote no. This board majority voted 3-2 to start the process of prohibiting future large-scale dog breeding operations and amending our ordinance. Is this a means to get us there? Because we've already voted on that, and I don't understand why, other than the timeline, which has dragged on for years, why we're not there yet. But if this is a means to get there, I'm going to fully support it, and I will make a motion in that respect.
So there's 2 ways of moving this forward. One would be to do an interim ordinance and then make the the final decision a year later, or if there's not agreement on there being an emergency or not, you do have the option of not doing an interim ordinance and just going right to amending the ordinance. But this, yes, this would get you in that direction.
Can we do both?
It would need to be rewritten a little bit, but you could amend the ordinance and then do interim ordinance to explore the issue of business licenses for commercial dog kennels.
I think what you described the last time we discussed this is one step that gets us closer to that process. And there's other steps that come afterwards, correct?
Right. So the way, taking your direction from last meeting, was that we would make findings of fact today that would start the process of adopting an interim ordinance. Then there would be a study period, and at some time up to a year, that information would be presented, and the county would make a final decision as to what it wanted to do with the commercial dog breed ordinance.
And is a moratorium part of that now, part of that later?
Yeah, so the interim ordinance basically is to prohibit any new kennels in Winona County.
I will so move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Olson, second by Commissioner Meyer, Commissioner Elsie, and then Commissioner Porter.
Yes.
I just try to wrap my head around the common sense of this. I guess the first question I'm going to just take the dog issue out and really bring this thing to some sort of an educational level here about the definition of an emergency. The first question I have is, were you tasked to figure out how to justify the emergency? Where did you come into this? Who asked you to say, we need a findings of an emergency? Were you tasked to do that? Or were you asked to do that? Or is this, because all I'm hearing is a reason that we should have it. I'm not hearing any reason for the justification. Does it actually exist?
So the answer to that question is yes. The board passed a motion directing the county to work towards having no new commercial dog kennels.
But I don't,
the manner
I'm
that,
asking about, the question I'm asking here is the emergency aspect of this.
right, okay, so that comes in because, I'm an attorney, right? I got to see how do we legally get to what the board has directed us to do.
So we have to find a reason, and so the reason you found was declare an emergency, and that allows us to move forward? I'm generally trying to understand the process. I think we're opening up Pandora's box here. Is what I think we're doing.
So the emergency comes in because under the interim ordinance statute, the courts have interpreted it to mean that you have to make a finding of an emergency in order to initiate the process of an interim ordinance. And so as an attorney, when I look at that, and I've been directed with how to move forward with this type of ordinance, I look over the record of what has happened over the past how many years here and the research that I've done since I've been here. And I look, is there any of that criteria match what courts have found constitutes an emergency? And the answer was yes.
So the A+B series here, I've got a series of different questions here. And again, I'm just take the dog situation out. I'm really trying to grasp my head around the concept of the emergency. So what I'm hearing is that you were tasked to figure out how to move this thing forward. In order for there to be an interim ordinance, we have to declare an emergency. Whether it exists or not, we have to define, can we find that emergency? I feel, just given the current circumstances, that we're grasping at straws. Nobody has called me on this issue. Nobody's talked to me about this issue. I've had a few people reference it. I see a handful of people show, and kudos. Again, I'm just, take the dog situation out. I'm looking at it. It could be any subject. It could be any subject in here. I'm trying to define and see where I see it. I don't see anybody being hurt, anybody being harmed, any potential danger to a human being. I don't see any traffic issues. I see nothing happening to a human being physically, which is where I think for the most part, we talk about water quality. What is it, the nitrate that's the problem, or is it the fact that it hurts a human? The fact that it hurts a human, right? We talk about car accidents. Do we wear seatbelts because we feel good, or is it because it protects a human? No, it's the human function to this. So to declare the emergency over a few people doing this, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, just over any subject, I fail to see where the emergency comes in. The only reason why I bring that is because if I brought in now, the next group of people can come in here and say, well, there's an emergency, intersection 502 and 3, I want an emergency, I want an emergency. It opens up Pandora's box to me in my mind that says we can have a few people create a certain situation. We're trying to create emergency out of information that we claim we can't even gather. How can you create an emergency out of information we can't even gather? So at the end of the day, and apparently we can get some of this information. So I don't really understand the process of the emergency, what the actual, nobody's defined what the emergency is, who's affected by it, what human being is affected by it. That's the part that I don't understand. Explain that to me. Who is physically being affected by this?
That's not what's required to find an emergency. So I think what I could say is that what you're describing as an emergency is a valid definition of an emergency, but it's not the emergency under the interim ordinance statute.
So if you were to write it up verbatim, what would the emergency be? That's what I'm trying to understand.
The emergency is in finding, let me pull it up. Finding 12, Winona County's current lack of access to the data needed for it to determine what controls are necessary to ensure commercial dog breeding kennels located in the county are being operated in a humane manner that protects the health, safety, and welfare of the public constitutes an emergency, as that term is interpreted under 394 Minnesota statutes 394.34.
Right. That's the question I have in this. So now we'll take it to this situation. How is it affecting, I know that the definition of emergency in here is saying a lack of information. That's what I'm hearing, right?
Right.
But it's about what? How it affects, says it in there, I can't find it, but how it affects the well-being of humans.
There's not, I mean, there.
One is what it is and one is what it affects, right?
And so it's health, safety, and welfare generally deals with humans, but as the Court of Appeals has found, it also can deal with regulating dogs.
I don't disagree, and I would love to read this. And again, I'm not, take the dog situation out. I'm really trying to understand if I can get what they're saying. Yes, if there's rabid dogs running all over, that could affect the well-being of humans, right? I mean, there's no doubt. So it has to have that. So again, it goes back to the well-being of the human being, not of the animal. So not against the animals.
Commissioner Elsing, what I would, so.
3994, it doesn't say anything
Right.
about emergency.
Here's what we're forgetting is the human interaction of the emergency. And it clearly states in there that it's about the health and well-being of the humans. That is the part that I don't understand. What is the emergency to the human
So
side?
Commissioner Elsing, what I would say is the finding of that emergency is solely for purposes of implementing an interim ordinance. The purpose of the interim ordinance is to allow more dialogue and investigation of these issues. If you don't think there's an emergency, then you shouldn't vote for the interim ordinance. And the solution to that problem, if the will of the board from the previous motion that passes to be carried out, would be to just move ahead with amending the ordinance without the 6 or 12 months of investigation.
Well, the only reason why I bring it up is because you represent the council in which we hire you for, and I'm asking you as council to define the human interaction here. And there is none.
I'm not defining the human interaction because that's not what the statute requires.
Okay, I'm at a loss because I've got 394.34 interim zoning pulled up here.
Mhm.
I can't see anywhere in this verbiage, a county in good faith intends to conduct studies, reasonable time, has held its public hearings, in new territory. Well, it's not new territory because we already have existing things. If it's an annexed municipality, no, safety and general welfare may adopt an emergency measure to temporary interim zoning map or temporary interim zoning ordinance, the purpose of which shall be classify, regulate use-related matters as it constitutes the emergency.
So
But there's no definition of emergency.
Right, that's because you need to do a case law search for that statute and see how courts have interpreted the word emergency and established the precedent of how that term
Well,
is used.
if we start,
And then if I
Start right here. If a county is conducting or in good faith intends, Commissioner Olson has said at a public forum that he intends to terminate all dog breeding facilities in Winona County. So that is not in good faith.
I can't speak to Commissioner Olson, I can only speak as the board acting as a whole.
Well,
Possibly get the
put it in as evidence. I'm sorry.
If it helps, and I think I may have brought this up before, but when you go to the gas station, there's a little thing, it says under Minnesota, blah, 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 you must remain near the gas pump, right? So look at that and try to interpret those words. What does near mean? Does it mean you're holding on to the gas pump? Does it mean that you're at 5 feet in front of the gas pump? We know if you're inside in the bathroom, you're not near it. But what if you're 10 steps away? Are you still near it? Well, if that were an issue that came up, people would litigate it and courts would decide what that means. And that's exactly what happened with the word emergency.
Well, I think you're leading us down into the courts again, but
Commissioner Nelson, go ahead.
My point to this is that, to me, my fear is that, and again, I'm going to take the dog situation out of this. My fear is that if this is so vague or loose laid that we can almost declare anything an emergency, is where does it go from here? And, this is to the rest of the board. The only conversations I really have about this situation is that, of course, I don't want to see any animals hurt. I don't want to see anything hurt. But if it's this easy to do it now, what stops it from the next group of people coming in saying, I like cows, I like hogs, I like chickens. And we so easily turn this thing over because there are people that had pet rocks. That guy made millions of dollars. But it's the truth, right? There's people that dress up in animals. There's all sorts of things. And that is my fear, that if this is so loose laid that we can declare this emergency so easily because of whatever, that is what the agricultural sector, I even received an email today about somebody that's not even in agriculture that said, we can really appreciate your point. What we're trying to do, Commissioner Elsing, is protect other people's livelihoods and not allow people that aren't affected by these decisions financially to come in and influence people that have made their living trying to do something outside of the dog community, inside of the dog community, whatever it might be. And that's what I'm doing, because I guarantee you, anybody here that had a financial position in this would probably look at it a little bit different. And that is the point I'm trying to make, is that if we're going to push so hard to declare this as an emergency, when I think all logic says, that's my opinion, all logic says this is not an emergency. This is a group of people that want something a certain way, and they'll go to any degree, including what they have to do to get it. And that's what scares me, and I think that's what scares so many other people, because rightfully so, they're nervous about their own well-being and what they're doing. And so I realize we're going to lose this, but all I can do is tell you what I feel my constituents are asking me to represent them for.
To clarify what's happening tonight, so if the board votes to move forward with this declaration,
It's the findings.
declaration of findings, that would prohibit the approval of any new commercial dog breeding kennels over the next 12 months. Nothing would happen with the existing operations
So,
during that.
so there's a few steps from, that I presented last week before that,
Yep.
that would take effect.
Right.
But yes, this would be the next step to move that forward.
And I just, speaking from myself only, there are dog breeders who are very responsible, very people. And this isn't something that is being done right. When did this begin? 2017? 2016. So this is literally 8 years in the making, countless meetings, findings, facts, et cetera. This is, if there's, I know there's very valid points on different perspectives, but it is not rushed, not even, it's almost the exact opposite of being rushed. Commissioner Ward.
I don't disagree with you. It's been on the agenda for a long time, but we've had past county assistant attorneys, we've had past planning commissions, and past county board members that have said the conditional use permit process works. And that's what we wanted to use, and that's what we were advised to use. So it just keeps coming back up because the goal hasn't been met by some of the commissioners. One of the things that in good faith, what can I tell my constituents about this whole licensing thing? Where does this, can we, there's some nervousness about, putting a license, more controls, more fees, more invasions into private entities. Where does this licensing fit into all of this? In good faith, how can I explain it to some of my constituents?
I think the short answer
Is that,
now
is that on hold?
It's yet to be determined, right?
Right, and if you review the PowerPoint from the last presentation, sort of, it goes through how the sequence. And so the, looking at that issue basically comes towards the end. Once the county makes that initial determination, after the study of the initial ordinance and decides what changes might be needed, then at that point, evaluating whether a business license would be something that could be or should be considered.
And that can be put on top of an existing conditional use permit holder that's been following all, has no violations, no problems. We can tack that on to them at some future point.
I don't think we're talking about that right now. That's what would need to be studied if the board chose to go in that direction, because there are constitutional issues and valid concerns in that regard.
Oh, absolutely. And I think you may be challenged on a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
You're going down a slippery slope.
Well, and to also be clear, is we're talking about companion animals and we're talking about dogs. We're not talking about cows, pigs, rats, or rocks.
Today we are.
Mice.
Today we are. That's the thing. Today we are.
I can promise you, Commissioner Elson, we'll never talk about mice or rocks. This is about companion animals, et cetera.
Okay, I have and I don't know if anybody in the room can answer that. So in my research, it was either Board of Animal Health or USDA, one of the doctors, and I did not get a hold of them in particular, but it did say companion animal division or something like that. I didn't get a chance to follow. I know this group would like to take dogs out of the agricultural and make a companion. So I was surprised to see that title behind somebody's name. I don't know what the state has done about that.
And
but that's
I just, maybe I shouldn't
Yeah.
go there with that look, but we're
I'll
talking,
find that.
we're talking about dog breeders. So, and Commissioner Meyer.
Yeah. So when I talked about this the last time, and I talked about why it's something that I support, I talked about things that two of what I consider our mainstream organizations talk about. And that's the Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals and the Humane Society. And so every year, the Humane Society puts out a report of the 100 most egregious puppy mills in the country. And one of them is in Winona County. And the violations are listed in the report, but there are also violations that I read, I don't remember, whatever, 6 months ago when we were talking about it, about not properly cooling kennels on a day like yesterday when it was, I don't know, the heat index got up to 110 and the animals who are just sitting there without even having fans and no having any air conditioning. And so I still believe that there is a need to do more for the animals than is being done. And that's why I'm supporting the efforts that so many people have called me about and written me about and talked to me about.
And for a fact, I don't have air conditioning in my house either, so I was,
You were probably very hot.
What'd you do for the mice and rocks?
I got cats,
Just
Commissioners.
one more question.
black cats. They were hot.
I'm counting hands and I'm going to assume those two, Commissioner Ward and Commissioner Elsing are going to vote no. And I respect that that's their point. If this passes, can we also, to expedite this, because it's been since 2016, and now you're asking for another year, I'm going to support the interim ordinance to do some more study, but, or the declaration of emergency. I'd also like to expedite the process with an interim ordinance process, to follow through with what the board majority voted on 3-2 to move this process forward. And I know that I know we have two parallel paths. I'm just trying to get to the end.
I don't think that's a question for Mr. Kranz.
I do. I think it is.
Well, he can't determine his workload. I think we got a murder trial going on that maybe takes a little more emergency precedence than dogs. Well, he's part of the team. Oh,
So are you saying like concurrently evaluate the business licensing and the changes to the ability to operate a dog kennel?
We have two separate things we're looking at, the business license aspect of it, and we also have the conditional use permitting process. We voted 3-2 to not allow further permit, to work to that process. We've had a public hearings process to change the ordinance. It shouldn't take a year. That motion was months ago. And I understand the whole world's understaffed.
Yeah, what I would say about the interim ordinance is that was my recommendation as the way to move forward. It is not the only way to move forward. I tend to err on the side of covering our bases as much as possible, and I felt that gives the county the best justification to be able to achieve its goals without ending up in litigation that it wouldn't prevail in. I'm not saying that's the case, that without an interim ordinance, you would be likely to lose a lawsuit, but just want you to be aware that that was my recommendation. It's not the only way to do it, and it could be done in any manner you want.
Commissioner
Do you believe even if we didn't declare an emergency and have the interim ordinance that is the moratorium, would that help us get to a potential final zoning ordinance that doesn't allow future kennels? I understand that we probably do need a year to figure out what conditions we would want for licensure.
Yeah.
But would it speed the other thing up? Or is it going to take a year no matter?
Yeah, well, so it's important to understand the finding of an emergency does not impact what changes you're going to make or whether you could make changes. All it is for purposes of saying, okay, we're going to consider an interim ordinance. And after that, you're not going to be talking that in terms of should we do this, should we do that. It's basically just a procedural step. So if you wanted to do that more quickly, you would not make the finding of emergency and you would just go with the normal amendment process for the zoning ordinance. And the purpose of doing the interim ordinance is just to collect additional information and put the county in a stronger position for whatever decision it makes.
What's the next step if we were to approve this tonight? What's the next step?
It gets referred to the Planning Commission.
In case you want to, this is the stuff from the last meeting. In case you want to, 9:30, that we get a draft, 10:08, we review the draft and send it to the planning commission. October or November, the planning commission has a public hearing. They make their recommendation back to us. November. We have to hold a public hearing on this topic.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Nelson, do you have?
So that's,
This is this was the
Right,
timeline
yeah,
that was
that's it.
proposed for us
Yep.
last meeting.
that's the last meeting. I read that.
Or not.
Are you ready to vote? I'm sorry, Commissioner Ward.
So I never even got to go.
Well, I
Over there.
I apologize. I
Yep.
said your name. I thought
Yep.
you were,
Yep.
okay.
Jeff.
Commissioner Elson and then Commissioner Ward.
Yep.
Wait till you're done.
Go ahead. Your turn.
1 year.
Oh,
Salute the commissioner.
Sorry, pardon me. Here, you just look at that. I thought that.
Salute to Commissioner Olson. You're correct. I'm going to vote no, but it's not for the reasons why you think. I've been in agriculture my whole life. My biggest fear is that when people don't understand something and they want to regulate it, I don't want to see any dog get hurt. I know a lot of those are golden retrievers. I have a golden retriever. I love animals. I always have. I've made a business out of taking care of animals to the nth degree. They eat better than what we do. That's just the truth. I vote no on this because it scares me, and I bring up the rocks situation because I fear what people are capable of. And if people can call a rock a pet, what's the next thing they're going to call a pet? And my fear is that people that aren't involved in agriculture are making decisions for people that are involved in agriculture without understanding what they're up against. I'm voting no because I believe this could be the beginning of more to come. And that scares me. And I believe that we should make sure our animals are taken care of. But I also believe there's a process to that. And simply just saying, no, you can't do it because I don't believe that's the right way to do it. That's why I'm voting no. I don't want a single dog to get hurt. I don't want a single animal to get hurt. People do consider mice pets. People do consider rocks pets. Hey, that's good for you. But don't tell me I can't put out a mouse trap, right? And don't tell me I can't pick rocks up in my field and get rid of them. That's my point. My point is that I believe in a free country. Yes, we need to monitor things, but I think we're going down a slippery slope. And the fear that people have is that how long before I have to have a license to go raise cattle, to have a hog, because somebody over there thinks I'm doing it wrong. And you guess what? You're never going to make everybody happy in agriculture. There's always going to be somebody pissed off and see it different and want to know. But again, chances are, and I've talked to thousands of them, they don't understand the financials behind it so that they got cheap food when they go to the grocery store. This ain't about a dog to me. It's about understanding what potentially could happen when we start setting precedents and government gets involved in the freedoms that we're granted through our Constitution and our God-given rights to feed ourselves. That's my fear. So it's not about a dog. It's about where is this going to go from here? That's it.
Points well taken.
Thanks.
Commissioner Ward.
I agree with Commissioner Elsing. I've raised all my adult life, pretty much have raised animals from cattle to emus to sheep to, right now I got 5 barn cats. And these barn cats, they get a custom fried egg every morning. I fry up an egg and I take out to the barn and make sure they all get a little bit of it. So I mean, I take care of animals. Animal welfare is very high on a priority of my personal thing. But as Commissioner Elsing said, we want small independent businesses in this county, I thought. We don't want large corporations and things. So unfortunately, the dog business is a multi-million-dollar business across the country. These dogs need to come from somewhere. We have responsible people running operations within our conditions. We can add conditions. We can put animal welfare, the training programs that are out there at a high priority. But we're telling a small business segment in our community that, well, we don't like this either. We don't want this in Winona County. I firmly believe with a conditional use permit, I'll have to get the reference that Commissioner Myers made, because again, I talked to people at USDA, Animal Board of Health, private, and they said in southeast Minnesota, Winona County, your breeders are, there may have been problems, but if they find a problem, as a veterinarian, you take an oath to protect, animal welfare. And so they do have to report it and everything else. Things can happen, yeah, but I think they're really trying to do one of the best things. There's a lot of emotion here because, if we watch TV, we see Edie Falco showing all the poor dogs and terrible, deplorable situations, which I agree. It's appalling. But one of the veterinarians that I talked to today says, most of those situations are not the commercial dog breeders. It's people that it got out of control, and or there's states and such that don't have the conditional use permit, or they're somebody referred to backyard breeders and such. They're not the people who are trying to do it, and believe me, our conditional use permit holders are trying to do it the right way. Health and safety and everything else. So again, if we don't want small independent breeders, somebody will pick up the slack. Will it be I don't know if there's large corporate dog breeders in the country. I don't know. But somebody will provide these animals. And it's a shame that so many of these animals, people have mentioned, they go to a shelter, they adopt or rescue. Well, it's not the breeder that caused the problem. It's the owner that either mistreated or didn't know how to take care of that animal or had, some issues. So I think we're trying to resolve some problems in some people's minds that are not our commercial dog breeders here in Winona County. There are bad situations, but I don't think we have them here. And we're taking away somebody's livelihood. We want small businesses. We want independent. We want family farms and such. And the Amish are really trying hard to work on this. They interact, like somebody said, in this business, it's great to have large families because these kids, it's part of their job, their responsibility to go out there and interact with these dogs. And I think that's what we want. We want good, healthy animals to go to loving families that can be taken care of. And I think we can accomplish that.
And one more comment, and then let's call the question.
The second reason why I'm voting no is because I don't see any sufficient evidence for an emergency, and I can't vote for something that sets a precedent that says this is an emergency. So I still am not convinced I see an emergency. So regardless of the subject, this is about declaring an emergency about anything, and I do not see sufficient evidence that there's an emergency. So it's not for the reasons why people think I'm voting no. It's not for. Thank you.
All right, let's call the question then. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2. That brings us to item 9.5. Should we take a break or should we keep?
Now, there's an emergency. Yeah,
It has a human interaction.
yeah, it does.
Yeah,
No,
you need a break?
Keep going.
Okay,
Keep going.
Fine.
okay, so item
Let
9.5
Let
is.
them clear the room.
Is to discuss approved notice of intent to publish draft cannabis ordinance. That takes us way down, well, not too far down on the agenda.
Give me my thing back?
No, wait.
No, I'm not trying to be possessive. That's what-
Who teased this one off?
I guess me, and, yeah. What you have in your packet is what we had presented at the committee of the board meeting, and so there's really two proposed ordinances here. One is whether the county wants to publish notice of intent to have a local ordinance that would regulate the use of marijuana or cannabis in public places that are owned by the county. So like Farmers Park or I think of other places.
This
but-
boardroom.
This boardroom, right, the county, well, I don't know, that's.
We can't
There's
smoke
some
in here.
employee issues there, yeah.
And you eat the brownies.
So, and the other one is whether the board wants to adopt an interim ordinance to look at a study and give further consideration on local cannabis activities being conducted, meaning regulate businesses, cannabis businesses. But that can only happen or we only have till January 1st, 2025. And a public hearing has to be held prior to adoption of an interim ordinance. So what you have, there's two ordinances really to consider, and do you want notice and a notice of intent to adopt, and that has to be published in the local newspaper, or not I'm sorry, it's getting late, right? It's been a long.
Paper record.
The paper of record, thank you, Chair Vaguely, yes. It has to be published in the timely manner, and then you hold a public hearing like you did with the housing trust fund. So it's really two questions. Do you want to study this? Now, I'm just looking right now because they keep updating it because the State Office of Cannabis Management recently opened and they keep sending stuff, right, Ms. Holte? So they do give some guidance to local governments. And again, yes, you may adopt reasonable restrictions on the time, place, and manner of cannabis business operations and adopt interim ordinances, as I said, to protect the public safety, welfare, or any studies and or further consideration of local cannabis activities are being conducted until January 1st. So you don't have a lot of time on the part about regulating local businesses. And for all we know, the state may take that over after a while. I don't know. We're not behind other counties. There are some counties slightly ahead of us. What I had given the board to look at for the committee of the board meeting was almost a virtual copy of the Rice County interim ordinance, as well as the public use of cannabis in public places. So that's where we're at, and then looking for, I guess, the board as to whether you want to publish these, give notice that you're going to have public hearing, and then decide whether you want to adopt.
One question I have, if you will.
Commissioner Elston and Commissioner Ward, or
They should have had Pancho.
So I just want to add one thing.
Yeah.
We do kind of consider this a zoning ordinance,
It
and
is,
so
yes, particularly the business, well.
The retail, well,
Part of it would be part of it, wouldn't be? Is that
Yep.
right? Yeah.
Yep. And because of that, it would follow a process where we would also take that to Plan Commission as well.
Well, and that's my question.
Commissioner Elston,
My-
Commissioner Ward.
My question is, but, I know there's been a lot of applicants already throughout the state. I don't know if we've received any.
Outside of the state too.
But I mean, just within our county. So, even if we kick the can down the road and let's say we only permit 5 applicants, how do we vet out who actually gets them? Are we going to work it on a first come, first served basis? Is there a bias that we can't create in that process? I'm really trying to wrap my head around how, you know what I mean? It's kind of like an alcohol permit. A city might only say, well, we have 3. I'm sorry, you can't file because they're all 3 taken. And we can change that. But unless one drops out, you're you next on the list regardless. Can we vet? What can we do? What are our options? That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I'd like to say I've got a lot of answers on that, but I don't. It's
I have
has
the
more,
same statement to you all too. I mean,
has
this
more to
is kind
do
of
with the actions that you all take today, but,
One quick thing, I'm gonna jump in, but one quick thing that I would be interested to see is the legal options that we have. And then the discretion that we can, as a board, decide how to do that. In other words, the vetting process or whatever that might be.
So you want me to look at I'm sorry, it's late, but the 300-page marijuana legislation.
Yeah, by 8:15, can you give me a summary?
Summarize.
I'm gonna be
I
the
don't mean
county
to be
board.
silly, but.
But
yeah,
this is part of the process.
But it's part of the,
Yeah.
and this might help us determine what we want to do or not do and start answering some of these questions.
And I have similar.
Because I saw it the same way. We're gonna have a zoning issue and then we're just gonna have what's the public issue and the public influence. 'Cause
Yep.
we have 2 things here. And the biggest concern I have is the farther we kick the can down, chances are the more the applicants we're gonna have. And now all of a sudden, are we gonna see some lawsuit by some big company that says you discriminated against me, which we just talked about lawsuits and that's where getting anxious to get some answers.
that's right. And so much like Steve was mentioning in the process of an interim ordinance, this is the same process that we were talking about previously with dogs. This is what we're doing with cannabis. And then we'll have that time. You will all be given some opportunity, give us some sideboards and things that you want to hear back from us. And, but we are going to have to act fast.
So, I don't remember, anything we do, does that control the operations in the city of Winona, or they're totally on their own? They can do whatever they want. But did we hear back from our other small cities, Lewiston, St. Charles, Utica? Any?
Just one, a handful of townships. I gave a presentation, or both Josh and I were at the one
Last meeting,
township
yeah.
meeting. And there wasn't anybody there that expressed interest in zoning cannabis. And I have heard from, it was, yeah, in Dakota.
But they have to tell us, don't they? Don't we have to
Yep,
get, so I
yep.
think that we still need to get that in writing.
Yeah,
To unincorporated areas and, right, it's similar to zoning, like, what is it? Wilson is the only one that's doing their own
They're
zoning.
from a township,
Yeah,
right? But
right.
then
So
all those small
we have
cities.
to tell us.
Wilson already told us that they're not
They didn't
interested.
want it. Yeah, no, they want us to.
I got about a half a dozen, I think, have responded. And like I said, none of them really spoke up at our
Well,
meeting.
this is, in my opinion, this is the reason you do a moratorium, because the state of Minnesota has not clarified the rules and regulations. So we're flying really blind as far as this goes and everything. And I think we discussed last time too, we got to look at both, the selling retail operations and the growing,
right,
potential
exactly.
growing
And
operations.
trucking and storage and processing.
Yep,
all of it.
and all that stuff. So there are a couple different
businesses
areas that need to be
And
looked at.
fortunately, there are all the other counties in Minnesota that are going through the same
Yes,
thing.
yeah.
And we will learn from that. I've had Eric Johnson, the zoning administrator, was kind of on point on this.
Yep.
He's been off on FMLA, but he's going to be back on Tuesday, and
Okay.
his email box is filled up with all of this.
So what do we need to do tonight?
Looking for your vote to publish this so that it can, I guess, but you're talking about it going through the planning commission too, but I think it would have.
Right.
So do you want the motion to just approve the notice of intent to publish?
Yeah.
Or do you want us to, that's sufficient?
Yeah, that's sufficient. Mhm.
But if you're okay with this ordinance, this draft ordinance, I think they could,
We can do it simultaneously.
Yes.
So
we
you
can
want
have
the
it in
motion to
same
be both that
Notice, yeah.
we approve of the draft ordinance,
Both of these going.
the two
to be
draft
published.
ordinances,
Mhm.
and we would like to move forward with the notice of intent to publish those ordinances.
So that we can get them in the paper.
And these are for both, are they both for moratoriums? I'm
No,
trying to-
one is,
One is you can't smoke.
yeah.
On county property.
Yeah.
And then the other.
we can't use.
Okay, But, you all talk about smoking, but there's many different ways.
It does say use, I think.
I think
It's used.
It addresses that, opposed to addressing.
So if you put-
Yeah.
What this,
How are you gonna do
you're
the
not.
brownies? I mean, what's the test?
Someone has to rat on the guy that's doing it.
How do you do the test? I'll
It's-
be the
it's-
tester, huh?
Yeah,
It's a job, we got to take applications for,
Really
the
intended to
test.
deal with Problematic issues.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'll make that motion.
oh, we have to deal with problems. I'm glad you said that.
The motion, could you state that motion?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so the motion is for the board to approve the two proposed ordinances that were presented to us in the packet, and to go ahead and move forward with the notice of intent to publish those draft ordinances and
Yes.
go forward with the process?
Right, the recommendation is they're discussed, you've discussed, and then the motion would be to approve the notice of
One
intent
question on that.
to publish draft
there a
cannabis
second?
ordinances.
Second.
too.
Thank you.
Motion by Commissioner Meyer, second by Commissioner Ellison.
With-
Commissioner Ellison.
Just a quick question. Are we following the state statutes for if a law is broken and they don't, are we just following their statutes as far as what the repercussions are for the ordinance?
A violation of the ordinance would be a misdemeanor?
Well, I'm asking,
So-
is it state, we're just following what the state statute is for what that might be, or are we creating our own?
Well,
No.
the Office of Cannabis Management is carrying out the legislation that
That's
will
what we can
allow, and then, right. And so they have provided, finally, after we drafted this, a model ordinance, which is virtually the same. So, I
But can
mean,
we supersede that, or does it have to be greater, can it be greater than or less than, or but what? I'm not advocating for anything. I'm just trying to understand.
Under the law, you can use you're going to be able to use cannabis.
So, but I mean, if
But you
somebody
mean, right,
does
can
it
we
in a
be
public
tighter?
space, can
Right.
we be tighter? Can we find them more or find them, we can only be up to what they say?
I would have to take a look at what again, it was literally a 300-page that covered everything from, DWI with hemp, or I'm sorry, cannabis,
Yeah.
and everything under the sun.
Take a
So,
look at it
yeah,
and see.
I
I'd just
will.
be
Yeah.
curious as to what we can
Yeah.
do. Because sometimes people are just like, what do I care?
Wasn't there
All right,
something passed you
and then
can't
it really
smoke in
doesn't do
apartment
anything.
buildings?
Yes,
Did-
that's right. It gets to that level.
Yeah.
That's right.
But whose law was that?
That is the stat part. It's in the
The
statute.
statute.
Interesting enough, today I just happened to
It's-
pop on Facebook and there was somebody in Winona complaining, I'm looking for a place, in Winona, St. Charles, Lewiston.
They can
Somebody in my
But I can
building is
see where
smoking
we're
and I
going.
get a headache, my kids are getting headaches, we don't like it. And, so again, what stops it? And so the question I have is if
Mm-hmm.
you can have any law you want, it's only as good as the enforcement or
right.
how bad the punishment is for somebody to quit,
Well, and it's gonna be, the sheriff's
Sheriff
department
wants
and the
another
city
deputy.
police.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, I'm just
The
saying,
enforcement. and
The
then
sheriff
come
wants
to-
another deputy.
Yeah,
another thing that we.
there you go.
I don't want to step in Karen's lane here, but Karen, but I don't think, I think the county can decide whether it wants to allow use on its property or not,
I was
That
just
part,
more,
yes.
I
Yep.
was just more curious about, defining or what,
Oh,
are they defining and saying, sorry, you can't go beyond XYZ fine or something?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a good point,
Yep.
because there are statutes that talk about how far a local jurisdiction can.
Yep.
be
Correct,
beyond
that's what I was
state. Yeah,
alluding
that's
to.
what-
I just
and
don't
know
know
what
all
you're talking
the
about. I
lawyer
just don't know
mumbo
the-
We
jumbo.
have a lot of state land in this county too. So do we have to regulate the state or land, like state parks, state?
I don't think we'd
Well,
have
let's talk about the
jurisdiction there.
federal land because you cannot
gotta
use it
vote for
all.
it.
It's still illegal at the federal land.
Call the question.
Yeah, okay.
All those in favor of the motion to approve notice of the intent to publish draft cannabis ordinances, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay. It affects people.
Motion passes 4-1. All right, committee reports and communications, Commissioner Warren and
Just-
Commissioner Elson.
Yeah, one real quick thing, Minnesota, the great gathering Minnesota State Fair is, our local young lady who was representing us as a candidate for Princess K of the Milky Way, Katie Ketchum, she was an honorable mention.
Yay.
So awesome for her. She gets some type of scholarships. I'm
Did she
not
get
sure.
the butterhead?
Did you get a
She-
butterhead?
They all get,
Okay.
all of those, yeah, get their head carved in butter. So I'm not sure if Katie's head's in butter yet. I haven't been to the state fair. But I just an outstanding young woman that represents the dairy industry. And I think she's at school at River Falls to become an educator. But just kudos to her.
Yeah,
Wonderful. Commissioner Elson.
great.
Just two things, and they stem a little bit from the township meeting. One was that trust fund info, meaning a little more, I had some people ask me about that and really trying to understand what that was. So if we can somehow maybe, I don't know, people are curious to that, but I don't know if we have something we can send out to some municipalities and townships. You can put my name on it, say I'm the reason why. If they don't like it, throw it away. The other one was the voting machines, and I did talk to Chair Holtby about this. That was the other thing with the funding of these. I feel bad because I haven't been able to get back to him with the answer on it because we don't really have the answer on it. But I'm just putting it on public record that we're at least trying to figure out what this funding mechanism is going to be. And apparently it's a formula with a percentage of funding that the townships or municipalities are going to receive out of that. So there's another one that maybe you could send something out to them and just say, hey, Commissioner Elsing's working on this and we'll send something out. So, because the Township Association asked for it.
Thank you.
You can
Anything
put my
else?
name on there if you would.
All right, the motion to adjourn is in order.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Commissioner Elson, second by Commissioner Meyer. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.